Lorenza Nicole Molina, aka the Black Butterfly Queen, La Reina Mariposa Negra. And yeah, we're here. It's Wednesday. It's later than I anticipated today to start, but I think it was necessary for me today. So, anyway, how is everybody doing? How's everybody been doing since last Wednesday? Or how are you doing right now? Seems like a lot of people are going through a lot of transitions. We have a lot of things going on in the world that are affecting finances, money, businesses. And when you have things affecting your livelihood and also going through transitions for, elevation or change or anything like that, it's a lot. It can be a lot. So I just want to acknowledge that. Hey, girl. Hey. Wasn't expecting to see anybody yet because girl, I started late, child. But yeah, we have a lot of things going on in today's world, and I mean, I don't always, go full into the topics of those things, but I just want to see how everybody's doing. Make sure y'all doing good. Whenever you see this, whenever it comes across your screen, it matters. It doesn't matter that it's the hour I'm doing it in now. All that matters is that you getting checked in on, and so I just want to check in on you and see how you are. Um, One of the things that I feel like I've been talking about a lot on this podcast is purpose and going after your dream and believing in that and making sure your belief system is in line with what you're following after, because sometimes on paper we believe, technically we know we shouldn't be even, ever heard the term, I shouldn't be mad at God, but you may be mad at God. Like there's things that technically I shouldn't feel that way. I should have let that go already. I need to let that go. But if you never given yourself time to deal with those things, then maybe your belief system is not adding up to what you believe in or what you're going after, even though that's what you're told. That's what you should be like going after or whatever, but it's just not lining up with what you're believing. So I'm going to pray really quick and then we're going to get started. Okay. God, I just want to thank you for this podcast. Thank you for this time. Thank you for however you decide to speak, however you decide who and when and timing. It's all up to you when it comes to anything concerning this platform, concerning this space. And so, God, I just want to say thank you for that. Thank you for trusting me, or just knowing in me the things that I have yet to know in myself. And I pray that anybody being challenged with anything today or feeling any doubt about anything they should be doing or trying to do, that they remember that it's not only that you have faith in them, that you working through them, but that you have a knowing in them and that you already know what they're capable of and what you put them here to do. I pray that you continue to let us stay open to you and open to the changes that are taking place and the changes that we may need to actually take place in our own actions for your will to come to fruition in our lives the way you want it to be. In Jesus' name, amen. Alrighty. So that's the prayer. Um, I was talking, I was talking with my sisters today. And we were talking about how, and this is what I've been talking about on this podcast, but we were talking about how so easily we can see things in one another and not ourselves. How we can believe and see the gift, but not in ourselves. And sometimes how the things that come easy to us, we don't think of it as a gift. It's just something we do. And others are just amazed by it. and how sometimes we're not sure, like, what is our purpose or whatever. And we constantly getting told, oh, you're so good at this. Or you made me feel like this when you did this, or da da. And those are really indications of probably where your gift lies. But also, I've also brought up in this podcast that sometimes your gift lies behind the lie itself. If you feel like you're not potent enough, or you don't have an ability to speak well, or you feel like you are inconsistent with things, and that's what that's the narrative you playing around in your mind, why you can't do something, or why you shouldn't be able to do something, or how much you really, even things that you distaste, like, I don't really like that, I don't see how I can da da da. Like, don't sell yourself short, because it'll be the very thing that you don't think you can do, you may not even like, but you're good at, that God is calling you to. And sometimes it's a means to an end. Sometimes it's a seed to something greater and better. And you have no idea, because if you've been shaped by the world, to feel a certain way, then you're not going to really be a good indicator of what's the best for you. Now, you may know what's the best for you in certain circumstances because you learned your lesson here and there, but overall, God knows the full picture. And so maybe what was best for you then, and it may have worked then, is not going to work now. And you're unhappy because you're not really feeling fulfilled with that thing, with life as it is. Even though you don't also want to, like, challenge yourself in a different space because of what you learned in before, when you tried to challenge that space and what happened. So a lot of that has been brought up throughout this time on the podcast. It's about purpose and going after your dream and going after what's right for you and all that stuff, and understanding that you are worthy. One of the things that we were talking about is some of us don't feel worthy or the right one to do a certain thing because of, for whatever reason, we just like, and this can be from anything. It can be from a career choice, someone asking you to do something that, what's that? Someone asking you to do something that like, maybe coach somebody. Can you help coach this team or whatever in the little league or blah blah blah, because you're so good with the kids, but you're like, I don't know the first thing about this. I don't feel like I'm the right one. There's so many reasons why we don't feel like we're the right one. We don't feel like it should be us. Hold on, guys. I see there's this little gnat right here. I keep seeing it and I just it's bothering me. Oh my God. It's a little gnat, but hopefully that's it. Okay. Throw that in the trash. I couldn't. But anyway, sometimes we feel like we're not the right one for the job because we have a standard or way we go by doing things, and what is being called on us to do doesn't fit that standard. Like, some people, like, I don't believe in talking about or being about anything that is not something I've experienced or whatever. So I'm not going to give an opinion. But sometimes your opinion being on the outside does help somebody to see things differently. Sometimes it can still be valuable, even though it's on the outside. And so not feeling like you're worthy or the right person for the job, and this is not just like imposter syndrome. This is just like a belief system. Like, I'm not that. That's for these types of people. I'm not that type of person. And you live by a certain identity. Yeah, you may not want to do certain things, but God will call you to things that you would never want to do. For example, I have a business that I am working on currently. Working on it. It has many legs and arms to it, but it's starting off with braids. Excuse me. Why every time I'm on here, I gotta clean my nose, guys? It's really ridiculous. And let me tell you something. I grew up with all brothers. Okay. I grew up with all brothers, God brothers. Okay. I didn't do no hair. Okay. Like, and I have a lot of hair myself, but I was big on let's put it in a style and let's leave it there until it's time to take it down and put it in another style. I was not the girl that like doing my hair every day like that. Let's braid it up, cornroll it down, something like that. Like, until it's time to take it down and redo it for wash day. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause it's a lot. Y'all see me on here before with my hair out in natural state or it pressed out or whatever. It's a lot. And I've always had that hair. And so I did not want to do hair. Like when I looked at beauticians, I thought they were just miracle workers because child, just to do one person's head, but then to do everybody's head and accommodate them in the best way possible, to be so understanding and patient about unrealistic goals that people have, like also makeup artists, serving people in this manner where they doing makeup, but people want to have a certain look, but they don't have the bone structure for that. And they don't understand that. And then they get mad because after the makeup's done, they don't look like Beyonce or Kim Kardashian or Rihanna. And it's like, well, baby, you this is the look she had, but it's going to look different on you because your structure is different, and there's nothing wrong with your structure, but it's unrealistic. And dealing with unrealistic things of like that from people is I have like a strong pet peeve. I was like, don't ask me to do something that's just, because I'm gonna be honest, be like, hey, I believe you can look good in this style, but we can try this or whatever. But just know that it's going to bring out your features and these things and these qualities in your face, and that's fine. But blah, 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 And I look at jobs like this where you do lash tech and all the, I admire people, okay, that are really good at being good stewards when it comes to their clients and things like that. I have such an admiration for that because I'm like, I don't know if I had the patience. Be careful what you tell God you can't do. Okay, be careful about the things you say you can't do, because God was like, oh, now it's time for you to start braiding hair. Let me tell you something. That was the last thing on my heart, mind, soul, spirit, radar that I would be doing. It's the last thing that I would think to do for myself. And yes, I can braid. I can. Do I want to? Sometimes no, because I'll be thinking about all the things that I'm not good at. Well, God, I don't know if I'm good at talking to people that are brand new to me and being so good with customer service that way. Like, even though I'm on here and people are like, Shana, you're good at talking, but I'm also introvert. And sometimes sometimes it's difficult to just do that. Like I'm a talker, but I want to say a selective talker, right? And so there's these different things that people see in me that I'll be like, yeah, under certain circumstances, I can give a lot of this. I can give a lot of that. But my talent don't care about that. My talent's like, hey, no, use this. Use this to add to your life. You know what I'm saying? And God is letting me know through this too, is that there's so many things that we don't think we can do that he already put in us to do. And because we don't think it is basically because how we were raised. Like me, I said, I grew up with all brothers. I grew up like a tomboy. Like my hand-me-downs were my brother's clothes, for crying out loud. Like I was big on the ponytail. Slick back, put it in the ponytail real fast. Like that's if I couldn't get it braided down to my head or whatever like that, it was gonna be in a ponytail, the little bun at the top. I didn't even do baby hairs. For what? That's extra. Why? So I was just really that really simple. And one of the things I really did hate wearing was individual braids with a passion. I tried it. I had so much hair. I cried. I didn't ever want to do it again. And that is so ironic that I would be God will be giving me this. But there's also something about when I've done hair or done someone's hair, helping people feel good about who they are, because I haven't always felt good about who I am, or having to walk through this world with the perspective that I have given to me about my skin color, or my that I'm a woman, or that I'm just, and then I have a multicultural background, and I know, I grew up with people pointing out, oh, you don't look like you from here, or you don't look like this, or you, and so there was a lot of things that I didn't want. Mm-mm. And God has called me to some things. You gotta be careful what you tell God you're not gonna do. And I say all this to say, I didn't feel qualified. Um, and that was out of respect to people who have had training, who have clearly a wonderful, beautiful gift for this. And I was like, who am I to be coming in? Let them have that. Like, I don't need to be in everything. Like, just because I'm funny, I'm one of those people, just because I'm good at something or I'm funny, don't mean I need to do it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just because I'm funny or just because I could do this, don't mean I need to be a comedian. Just because I can just because I can do those things doesn't mean that I need to do that. I don't feel like I need to be in everything. But if you have a gift or a talent, it's needed for something. Like, you don't just have that to do nothing with it. And you may not do it like somebody else, but there is a place for that and a space for that. And there's a need for it. It's simply said like this, when you're not working in on your gifts or using your talents or your skills for anything, there's people waiting on you. You're an answer to somebody's prayer. You're an answer to something. And I know sometimes we just feel like we're not worthy of that space because of how we may operate or do things. But God has called you worthy. God has called you that. And sometimes you just like, no, but out of respect, I just don't call myself that. Like, I've done makeup, I've been paid for makeup, but I have a hard time calling myself a makeup artist, because there's people who are currently doing this consistently every day, all day. And I feel like, well, they should be called that. But professionally, I can call myself that because I've done it and I know how to. I just don't want to call myself that out of respect to those who are working. But when does the line come when you respect people so much for what they do, but you're beginning to disrespect your own stuff, disrespect your own gift, disrespect that because, well, you can do that, but I'm not really like you, but it's cool to respect people for what they do and honor them for that. But when you're at the point to where it's taken away from you being able to see your own ability in something, it's a problem. When you are allowing the wall that to be a wall to you stepping out of a box, it's a problem. And how many stories have we heard about people who weren't looking for something, weren't trying to be or do or whatever something, and God gave them this, or even if they don't even give credit to God, they stumbled upon this, they felt strongly they should do this or whatever, and then it ended up working for them, and they end up finding out more about themselves than ever. I just want that to be taken in consideration for everyone who ever thinks like with their logic, well, technically, I shouldn't be doing this because of this. But we talk about God here. So if God's calling you to do something that you don't think you're that good at because of whatever you didn't get growing up or whatever it is, it's really, we should know better by now that means nothing if God has called you to it. It means absolutely nothing because who you are is being called to it. People need you there. So I just want to say you are worthy. You are worthy of that, even if you don't feel like you are. You logically, it doesn't make sense to you. If because sometimes we have hidden gifts and hidden talents in certain circumstances bring those things out, and you would be doing a disservice to yourself. Child, there's a whole fly in here. You'd be doing a disservice to yourself and the people who need you. Let me see if I can get me a little piece of paper out of here. That's gonna be a whole journal. And the people who need you. Because it's not about just, your gift. It's about the room the gift makes for you. People need your character and your personality in spaces. They need a breath of fresh air. And sometimes it's what you are. Just a breath of fresh air. And your light, your personality is needed, and your gift makes room for you to be able to show up in that way. So I just wanted to say that it just seems like something that keeps coming back over and over again, rewrapped, reset in a different box, in a different manner. It just keeps coming. But you are worthy. Whew. I'm sorry, guys. It's just this trying to. So don't discount yourself or take away from what you can do because what you weren't able to do before. Quite frankly, it's I have faced a lot of things this last couple of weeks, which taught me that my belief system has to be let go of when it comes to me for me to go to the next space. I feel like a lot of people are moving to another place and they're transitioning, and we use that word a lot, but it's like you're literally getting picked up and moved, and it's causing things, like it feels like it's causing things that used to be vibrant and plentiful to dry up. And it looks like you're losing everything, or it looks like, it's just little things I know. It's like the old things that used to work, even in real life, like that one reliable thing all of a sudden ain't reliable. That one that the car that never has the issues, all of a sudden that got the issues. Or the outfits that always work, then that's the outfit, the type of outfits, your favorite outfits are in the closet or whatever. Those outfits always work, and now something happened to it randomly. Like, what happened to it? Just ripped it. Like little things that you used to rely on. It'd be the littlest things, the little routines, or we usually do this, and if something disrupts that routine, something messes with the way you were doing something, and it's like wait, it felt like just a moment ago it was working fine, and now it's just not working. So all those little things that just keep getting interrupted or keep getting disrupted, things that were how you function, and it's always about just reliable systems that you put in place for your life, or how you do things, how y'all do things in your home, just are just changing. Things are becoming wore out. Things are dwindling. And it's crazy how it feels like all the little things that identified your life that made sense. The little things are bigger than what you realized, because you become dependent on those things being consistent. And when those things get disrupted, you're like, okay, or those things are getting overly used, or now you feel a depletion on something. Is like, okay, well, what do I do now? Because I'm not in the position to just jump to anything, but I know I can't keep using these things because now they're running out. It's almost like it's meant for everything to run out, everything of old to run out, so that you have room for the new. And a lot of those things that are running out, a lot of those things that are being affected or disrupted, that mess with like your peace or feel like it's messing with your peace is because it's attached to identity. It's attached to an identity. It's attached to a mentality that you're thinking in. And you just can't afford to think like that where you're going. You can't afford to operate or take those things with you. You know, a long time ago, I remember this pastor, I think it was a kid, and they were talking about how grace moves and how you have to be willing to move with grace. And that when God starts moving, some people don't want to move with the grace. They want to stay where they are. And that may be, I mean, I'm going to just use a job, for example, because that's something we all can understand, is that, you know, maybe you're having some problems on your job and you're like, I'm just being attacked on my job and all this stuff. But really God is like, no, the grace is moving and it's time for you to go to something new. And you getting inklings that you need to do these little things that don't make sense. And these other little things are falling apart, but you're getting inklings to do new little things that don't make sense for where you are. And it's because you're not going to be staying there. It's not like a coincidence or whatever. Like, you're not probably going to be staying there and you can see it, but you're maybe not ready to move. And God will let all the things fall apart so that you know, like, I'm over here now. I moved over here and I need you to move with me. Because we get really comfortable in the first thing God told us. We get really comfortable. Once we start doing that, it's like, whew, we're creatures of habit. We'll get really comfortable in the first thing God told us and not want to move. And then we get set in our ways. God is the way. We can't get set in our way. If God is the way, He's going to always call something different for you in a different space in your life. He's going to call you to things that you be like, I already did this. You're like, not this way. Not this way. And so sometimes grace is moving and we're not accepting that. We're not agreeing with God. Sarah Jakes was talking about agreeing with God. We're not agreeing with God for the changes. We're not agreeing with God for what we have to do. And like I said last time, there's just no shortcuts to this. There's no if, ands, or buts. We've been praying prayers that don't apply to where we're going and wondering why nothing's happening. Because while you're sitting here praying for the tree to grow, God was like, you're not even supposed to be at this house anymore. You're supposed to be down, in a whole nother country. You keep praying about the apple tree in your backyard to grow and be fruitful, but I can't add anything to that because this is not even where you belong anymore. I need you to go over here. Hey girl, thank you for the heart. I need you to go over here. And you're sitting here praying for stuff or that person. And God's like, you putting a lot of energy towards the wrong thing. You're putting a lot of energy towards the wrong thing. You wondering why it's not working. My grace is over here. It's not right there. You keep putting the wrong energy on it. God ain't answer my prayer. Maybe He did answer by not answering. Maybe that's the answer. So my suggestion is, if you really want to find out if you're praying the right prayer, ask God, give me the prayer that you need me to pray, and then give me the praise that you need me to give you concerning this, because sometimes you need a new praise too. Have you ever you saying general, even thank yous and everything, and sometimes it's the fact that you need a refreshing in your relationship with God. You need a newness in your relationship with God. Your relationship has come based, just mediocre, because that's what you do. You just like, okay, God, I do my devotion in the morning. I do a devotion at night. I do a devotion at lunchtime. I go to service. I read my Bible deep on Fridays. You know what I'm saying? I have all these rules and regulations. And this is the thing about religion. The word religion literally means organized way of worship. But the thing about God's will is that you have to be on your toes ready for Him to be like, this is my will. this is what my will is for your life. I need you to move this way. And if God's will is speaking to you, but you're in a religious mode where you're just doing everything organized and I'm doing all the you're saved. Yeah, you believe in him. Yeah, but what God didn't want, God don't want us to be passive as believers. He doesn't want us to be, he ain't necessarily trying to make you gotta scream and shout all the time, but you're not supposed to be inactive. You're doing everything in a cute little bow. And last time I checked, Jesus did flip tables, right? Last time I checked, everything that he did brought him to the space where he ended up being crucified and then raising from the dead, right? Everything he did brought attention, even though he did it with a gentle touch, or he spoke, or he said he was just being himself. It brought attention. God is not asking you to do everything in a cute little bow, in a cute little box, in a cute little thing, and you don't want anything to disturb, and you want to stay in this space, and you forgot that you even going to this space required you to have faith in the first place. It required you to trust God. It required you to be able to move with him. God is nomadic. God moves. So that means he will move you somewhere. He will have you move somewhere, or he have you move people where you are. But if all I know for sure is that God will move something. If he tells you to be still, that means he's moving stuff around you. If he tells you to move, that means he's telling you to get out of the situation, because that situation don't need you to be a part of it no more. But God is an active God. That's why he say faith without works is dead. We can't expect things to fall into our laps if we're not willing to put the work in. And sometimes the thing that we got to put work in is the thing that we never thought we could do. I really feel like God is asking a lot of us to do stuff that we just never imagined ourselves doing. We just didn't see ourselves like that. And that's understandable that you feel that way, because a lot of us feel that way, but it doesn't change the fact that it's really happening. And that's where his grace is in the unlikely thing. And some things he had to hide from us. I mean, think about all the things that it took for you to gain back from the things that people tried to take from you that were obvious gifts to you. Some things are hidden in the mystery of just living life. He did not reveal everything to you at once. He even talks about this when he says, my ways are not your ways, my thoughts are not your thoughts. He talks about this, about him knowing things that we don't know. He even was it Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 13, I think verse 12. He is talking about the writer is saying, when I was a child, I thought as a child. When I became an adult, I put away childish things. And that we know in part, so we prophesy in part, and things like that. Like, we don't know the full story. The story is bigger than what you've encountered. You still have life to live. So why would this be it? Why would this be the final say? Why would this be the only thing? Why would this, some people like, oh, I got married and and God's trying to give you another person, but you don't think marriage is for you. But you don't know that the person that God's giving you is the one that holds the key to the treasure in you. Or, what I'm saying, like people just develop their own belief system based out of circumstances and not based out of what God said for them. And I'm talking about people who believe that God is who he says he is, that Jesus is who he says he is. They have this belief system in him, but they don't operate in it. And then when things are starting to change, they are acting confused as if God is not who God is. God will always be God. I mean, he is always going to be doing something bigger and larger than we will ever understand, and that we are part of that tapestry. When we are in time, and we are part of something bigger. And there's no way that we're going to fully see the full picture. We're never going to fully know everything. but his grace moves. And that's just it. We just gotta, and when you're running out of resources in a space, it's because it's time to move different. Time to do something different. Hey girl. Amen. Amen. It's time to do something different. Like, you would just be in a situation where you just look around and you're like, I'm so over this. It's not even that it's bad. It's just been okay for too long. Like, it's just okay. And okay is, God is great. Why don't I feel that when I'm doing this? I just making it. We having the same raggedy conversations with the same raggedy people. And some of them not even bad. It's just they ain't really grow. That's all they know how to talk about. And it's not that they got a bad heart. It's just some of them not even raggedy. You just, oh, okay. Going to the same spot when you go out, and it's just like the same meal, $12.99. You order. It's just mundane. And God has called you to be great. I'm not saying we're not gonna have moments in life that feel like that, and then we're supposed to just uproot and run rampant. But sometimes when you're looking around and it feels like the world is just passing by, and you're just watching it happen, and you're not satisfied, and you feel like there has to be something else, it's because there is. It's because there is. And if we want those things, we have to do the things that we never thought we would do. We got to do the things that we never seen before. We got to do what our grandparents have never seen. Our grandma and them didn't look at. They didn't know that existed. Mother and them didn't know they existed. You know what I'm saying? Your cousin and them didn't know it existed. Sometimes you got to be, you got to be willing to go outside of even the family's identity of, well, we don't do that over here, or this is not what we do. This is an identity thing. This is you identifying with who God called you to be versus who someone told you you were. Some of y'all walking around with names that your parents gave you, and God's like, that is not your name. I'm just saying, it's that deep. It is that deep. Where God probably placed on your parents' heart to name you one thing, and they were like, you know what, I'm gonna just name him after my cousin Frank. And you walking around with the name Frankie, and you a girl, and you like, I've never felt like a Frankie or whatever. And God, like, I got a name for you. People will give you a name that aligns with their thinking sometimes. And that can be physical, but also they will treat you a certain way, and the way you show up in the room and how they look at you align with their thinking, and not with what God has called you to be. Not with what he said you are. And this is something God told me, and I think I said this before, is that God had been using all these women in the Bible that were prostitutes or had some type of sexual sin, or anything like that. And they were the lowest of the low in the community, outside the tax collectors and beggars. Okay? And then he'll use them. I mean, if you look at Jesus' bloodline or whatever, from David, there was all kinds of stuff in there. Hagar helping the Hebrew children get into Jericho so they could see who their enemies were, and there was giants in the land. People forget that Jericho had giants, and God spared her and her family. Her father, her mother, her sister, her brothers were spared because of her, not because of her daddy, but because she was the one willing to do something no one else was willing to do. And she wasn't a part of the children technically of God, but she ended up having a baby by a home dude and all this, like which ended up begotten to Jesus. And you got to read the story, but I'm saying there's other people in his bloodline manipulating the father so that she can have children because her husband died, so that she can have children and it will be considered his children because of the laws of the land back then. It's a whole lot of things. A lot of that happened. And I was like, God, why are these women being brought up when they, is it because they were prostitutes? He's like, no, it's because I called them. Because they are women. Because women have power. It doesn't matter the mud or the things they made mistakes in. It doesn't matter. I've given them a certain authority in this land. I've given them a certain ability. I've given them a certain gift to move like my spirit moves. And regardless of what has happened or what was done, if they answer my call, I'm going to use them. I call them by what I call them by the name I gave them. I don't call them by the things that they've done. I'm calling you by the name I gave you. And it may seem unfamiliar, but for something about it seems still familiar. It's crazy. Have you ever met somebody and it's like, something about them seem familiar? You're like, man, you just seem like somebody I would know. You don't know what it is. And then maybe down the line you figure out, oh, I met you in kindergarten and your mama and them used to be friends with my mama and them, whatever. But at the time you may not realize that. It's just something about them that seems so familiar and you can't put your place it because you were so little when you last saw them. You were in a whole nother space mentally. But now they're brought back into your life, and sometimes you have a good experience with those types of people, and sometimes it's just. But there's something about the things he calls you to that you could feel like there's more about yourself behind that door number one. And there's no other doors. It's just door number one. And you don't want to walk through it because it's so different. But there's something that is appealing that kind of taps at you just a little bit. It makes you just wonder just a little bit. It feels familiar. It's like having amnesia and remembering who you are, or being adopted and finding out that you're adopted and you belong to all this. You get the best of both worlds. You get, when you're adopted, and I have not been physically adopted or just, I'm, but say for example, I'm going to tell a story and it's kind of like a parable, I guess, or a made up story. But say for example, there was a man, lost, going through it, probably used to have money, used to have all these things, and now he has nothing and he's lost and he's going through it. And there's another man that while he's in the midst of his stuff, he kind of noticing him. And the man comes up to the lost man, the new man. I got to give them identity. So the new man comes up to the lost man, and there's something about the new man. It's like something about him is familiar. And so he asks him in the middle of all his craziness, I know you from somewhere. You look familiar. You look like somebody I know. And the new man talks to the lost man, and he was like, yeah, I do this, and this is what I do, and da da da. And they strike up a conversation about where they're from, and trying to find how they may know each other, because you do look familiar. And the new man's like, yeah, you look like somebody I know. You look like somebody I know. And so they're walking and they're talking and they're laughing and yeah, and I know that person over there, and they're getting more and more familiar with each other. And the longer the lost man walks with the new man, the new man becomes more and more familiar to him. It's almost like he has amnesia and he's beginning to remember that this man is somebody from a place in his life that he doesn't identify with anymore, or that he forgot about. And so as he walks, they finally get to a space, and the lost man looks around and he realizes he done walked all the way from his current situation because he got so caught up in the conversation with this new man, and they've been really having a good time conversating, and he just forgot about the chaos and went with him. And when he looks around, the space he's in looks familiar. Then everything begins to dawn on him. I used to live here. I used to run up and down this pathway right here. I remember this space. The memories are coming back. And as he begins to it all come back together, there's a man on the hill that begins to wave. And this is an older man waving at the new man and the lost man. And he was like, he looks familiar too. He looks like you, and you look like somebody. Y'all look similar, but you also look like me. I don't understand. And then you see other people come on the hill and begin to wave and say, come. And as he walks up the hill, it all comes back that this is his family. This is the property. And he got lost in the middle of mess. He got lost in the middle of doing something different. He got lost in the middle of all of that. And the thing about it is, he wasn't just lost. He might have been stolen away from those people, that family. And when he got stolen away from that family, he took on the identity of the family that took him. And because he took on that identity, he did not know how to even go back home. He thought those were just random dreams he was having. He thought those were just fleeting things that came to him. He didn't see how that correlated to where he was. But the man that came and picked him up on when he was lost and dealing with chaos, the new man, the reason why he looked familiar is because he looked like him, because he was his relative. And now that he realized that's my relative, that's what made him his familiarity. Somebody familiar had to come that looked like him enough where he was, but looked like where he came from and also where he was going, so that he could follow that man, find out more about that man, just to find out that that man was attached to not only his true identity, but everything that had ever been taken from him returned back to him. And this man goes up on the hill to meet his father and the rest of his family, and finds out that he's a rich man. He was okay before. He had a little money before he lost it, but he was a wealthy man. He was a part of a big family. He was a part of a big community. He was a part of the king's castle. He was a part of all that. And this whole time he did not know it, because he was stolen and lost and taken from his identity so early that everything he remembered about it, he just thought it was a dream. But he never did anything about it because it didn't make sense for who he was or who he thought he was. That's how Jesus is for us. He's the new man talking to the lost. When he is trying to get you to see yourself in a new identity, it may be a little nervous at first, but he gives you little inklings. It's like, but if I just go a little bit, maybe I'll find out something else. There's something familiar about this place. And what's familiar about it is all those little things in life that you didn't really pay attention to, that didn't really seem like it mattered that much. Those were the little dreams that the lost man had. Those were the little things that would come back to him. Those were the little inklings that you wonder why it was such a struggle for this. It was wonder why it was so hard. For me, for example, I didn't like doing hair. It's interesting why I didn't like doing it, even though I had a whole lot of hair, even though I was somebody that knew what it would go through to be ridiculed behind my hair, make me feel bad behind my hair, and even lose hair and things like that, and get sick behind my hair, and what that would go through. And that's what women need, and is to feel beautiful, and that what they have is still beautiful. And that's what I will bring to the table. My unique experience in that is everything that these women that I will do their hair, or even their sons, I do their hair. they will feel the cultivation of my struggle. But I dismissed it. I dismissed that because I thought because it was a struggle, it was never for me. But it was actually the opposite. It was actually the opposite. Because now that I know what that feels like, I know how to give them grace and options for where they are so they don't have to ever feel what I felt. Jesus is the new man that looks so familiar. The one that can relate to us, the one that looks like us but don't look like us, the one that knows what it's like, what we're going through, that's walking into our situation as a familiar face, that is pulling us his direction. But some of us still want to keep arguing with old people instead of taking a chance on the new person. Like, what is it about them? You have a curiosity that keeps pulling you towards that direction, but you keep letting the loud crowd, the loud chaos pull you away. And the new guy keeps standing there, waiting for you to just come over and have a conversation with him so he can lead you to the place that you were taken from in the first place. And I say that we all come into this world with something. I know people like, everybody say that, but it's true. But just because it's not it's not underlined and highlighted as a gift or a purpose or a talent or skill does not mean it's not something. But the talent and the skill is only there to make room for you, the person, in a certain space. Some of us are being called to certain spaces and God is revealing what we have now, because if we knew what we had now, but with a worse understanding, we probably would have gave something over to somebody. There's already things we felt like we lost. There are certain things that he can only reveal as you walk with him. But you got to go where the grace is. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it does mean that that's where he is. That's where he is. I say this a lot of times about being saved too, that sin is the thing that stole us away, is one thing that made us lost, and one thing that we had a little bit of something, and then it got taken and depleted and we feel like we ran out. But the whole reason for that to feel like it's running dry is because that was what was with you when you were taken. But that's not the source of everything. The source of your wealth, the source of your gift, the source of your ability is all from God. And yeah, you may feel like you don't have nothing else to give in this, but God is saying, I can give you more in a different way, in a different level, in a different space, in a different arena, in a way that it was always meant to be. If you just follow me, if you just come have a conversation, our conversation, just spend some time with me in a new way, in a different way, like intentionally come to me differently. You may not know everything I'm doing. You may not know everything I am and what I'm about to do in your life. But I tell you, there's a little bit of me and you and a little bit of you and me. Like we are familiar. We are family. Not familiar. We are. And I'm the only one that can really direct you back to the greater part of this, because it might have overwhelmed you if you were just put there. It might have been too hard to receive it if you were just put there. But if you go and you just talk a little bit with him, if you just spend a little bit with him, it's even spending a little time with God in a different way will help lead you in the spaces that you need to go. He knows you better than you know yourself. And you've been identifying with a family. You have been identifying with a space that was never for you. It might have worked for a little while. It might have sustained you for a little while. It might have helped you stay out of certain troubles and helped you stay in a certain space so you can always be found. So that even though you feel lost, you were never really truly lost to God. He always knew where you were. You didn't know where you were. You didn't understand what was going on. But God has always known right where you are. So yes, maybe he allowed certain things because at that time it was going to help it was not going to take away from the greater purpose of your life. But now you're in a space to where you cannot identify with chaos. You can identify with the family that stole you, with the identity that stole you, the things that people are trying to put on you, and the things that you have accepted for yourself, the rules and the regulations, even some of the things that we say, well, that's my standard. Is it? Or are you trying to prove a point that you don't need this, that you don't need that person, that you don't need this over here, you don't need them to do this for you? Are you trying to prove a point? Is it a standard, or is it that you're trying to prove a point? Meanwhile, you're not even getting to live as who you are, because you're more worried about proving a point to people who are irrelevant, because you can't get blind people to proofread your purpose. It never mattered, because even if you prove the point, it wasn't that they didn't already know it was true, that you could do it. It was all about them just trying to take that away from you, make you feel bad about yourself because they don't feel good about themselves. So wasting your time trying to prove a point to people who are already speaking against you is a waste of time. Because most of the time they already know that you can. They already know that you're capable. They already know that you can be successful. Because see, game, even though game doesn't always know that game is peeping game. They already see who you are. They don't even realize them seeing who you are is evidence that they are somebody too. But instead, they have fallen to the victim to the lie and become jealous and envious and have given up any hope for themselves. But why does that have to be your story? Why do you have to be on the other side of that trying to prove something to people who are broken and it's not your job to fix? I've had so many people, when I just decided to go on about my business, that God has given me the mind, drink my water, mind my business, and be black. Like, that's what I'm doing. I've had so many people come and call me up, reach out to me later and be like, I was wrong the way I did this, blah, 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 blah. Not that I necessarily needed it, but they needed to say it. Because they saw me go ahead and do what I needed to do regardless of how they moved. And they realized I was just being a hater because of my own stuff. And you didn't deserve that. Because I didn't realize God was really trying to use you to show me who I was. That show me what I could do. And I didn't know that at the time. I just knew, hey, I'm having an issue with this person. They don't like me like that. Whatever. I got to go on. But I don't have nothing to prove to nobody. This life is not about wasting my time trying to convince people who never created me, fashioned me, or made me that I am who I am. And I refuse to continue to live under the identity that I can or cannot do something based out of the environment I grew up in or the people I grew up around, the identity that has been given to me. Hey, how you doing? But I refuse to just live like that. I refuse to live by it. Because all this time, I was never one of you. This is why it never worked. This is why I have had to conform and fit and shrink. I refuse to do that now. I refuse it so much that I am not even going to use the vernacular that I used to use with myself. Like, that ain't for me. No. I've learned not to say that, because every time I say that, God gives it to me and I'm getting tired. So whatever you say, Lord, I can't keep saying it's not for me. I can't keep saying I could never do that. I can't keep saying that, because every time I do, I promise you, every time I do, he will like, here you go. Another thing for you to do, since you think you can't do it, because that narrative is coming from a space that I never gave you, it's coming from an identity that I never put into you. That is not me saying that you cannot do that. That is everything that everybody has put into you and your negative experiences, because some experiences are negative because of how we look at them too. They're not just negative because of how we felt, and negative because of how we saw it. But when we go back and look, I'm like, that's not even what was really going on. I just felt that way because of this thing over here, and realized it was always for my good. But I am not going to bless you bless the fake identity. Even the one that you like, I'm true to this. I ain't new to this. I'm true to this. Oh, for real. You really are. Time to be brand new again. It really is. Because you're identifying with something that's not even who you are. And you're holding on to that religiously. And believe me, religious people ain't all in church. Religious people are people who have a narrow-minded way of thinking, and they place that on everybody else, and they say it's just their standard. Well, that's my moral compass. This is what I believe. This is how I feel. But you're not open to growth, and you wonder why you're irritated, and you wonder why you keep getting jealous of other people, because you're not open to your own healing, your own growth, your own success, your own wealth. And so since you don't know how to stand tall on what God gave you, you want to knock everybody else down on their knees so it look like you taller. But you're really not. You just operate in a nasty attitude that God didn't even, narrative mindset that God never even gave you. But you want to call yourself saved. And this is what I don't understand is people who call themselves believers, not really looking at the character of God and looking at themselves and thinking, does it match? Does it match? Because I'm over here being nasty to people. Does it match? But guess what? He wants you too. He wants you. He wants me. He wants all of us to know who we are. But you cannot truly be happy being nasty to people intentionally all the time. Yeah, you may get a little mental peace for a moment. But it even says in the Bible that the wicked can't sleep until they cause others to fall. Not trying to call you wicked, but I'm just saying, if you can't have no rest until you cause somebody else pain, and you don't, that's not real peace. That just means the demons decide to leave you alone because you obeyed them. They're like, all right, you did what we wanted you to do for the day. We'll leave you alone. Now you can sleep. We'll let you sleep. Don't let me go into it. I'm just saying. A lot of us are identifying with stuff that we never were supposed to identify with. That's why we're not happy. That's why we're bitter. That's why we do it. And there's no getting around that. There's no change. There's no change. I ain't even trying to like talk crazy to nobody, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of people who are unhappy, hurting other people. And it's like a mob mentality to fall for it. But this whole time, all of us are part of something greater than we know. We got to be willing to just walk in that. We got to be willing to abandon the world as we know it and step into a new one. Even how we identify with our children, spouses, if you have a spouse, people at work, everything. How we allow people to identify us. Expectations or no expectation. But one thing what we don't need to do is sit here and try to keep proving stuff to people. It is a waste of time. Because God already know you. He already know what you're capable of. If anything, you need to see in yourself what you can do. That's what this is about right now. It's time for you to see who you are. Because it's not just about you, but right now it's important that you see that. Because there are so many people that you are an answer to, and you're never going to fulfill anything. Sometimes we're so used to living with an unfulfilled feeling that we just continue and we try to act like it's normal, and it's not normal. There's some type of emptiness, heaviness, numbness that people just get used to dealing with and living with, and it's not normal. But that is an indicator that you need something more, and it is not to prove a point, because God got a way of showing up and showing out all by himself. He don't need no help from you. All he need for you is to be you. And you're not going to be you by living by these false narratives that you have built around yourself because you believe that you're doing so right. Because I'm not doing it like this. I'm not in the streets doing this. I'm not doing that. But you're still running from who you are. Just because you're not on drugs in the street don't mean you're not running from who you are. Like when we be really out here pointing fingers and talking about people, just because you're not alcoholic don't mean you're not running from who you are. You may just simply be at the wrong job running from who you are. You may simply just be in the pulpit when you're not supposed to be. You may simply supposed to be in the pulpit, but you refuse to do that. So you just rather take a job as a manager somewhere. Anything. So you're running from who you are. And you can't fool God. You can fool yourself. Fool your mama. Fool your daddy. Fool your granny. Fool everybody else. But you can't fool God. You cannot fool God. And while you're trying to prove who you are in a false identity, that you can be this, yeah, and then what if you did prove it, which is still for that you won't, and you have spent your life proving stuff to people who did not even give you life, and that means your parents too, because as much as they say I gave you life, they didn't get you. You got created because of an act, but you were already created by God. You came because of an act. That was a doorway to get you here. But so far as who you are was already fashioned and formed before you were even in your mother's womb. So what are we doing? What I don't want to do ever again in my life is be a people pleaser, try to prove anything, trying to hope that people get it one day. For what? All that matters is God is pleased with me. I hope to help people along the way and love them and all that stuff. But if they don't get it, they don't get it, because this is the thing. There's always going to be somebody that don't get it, don't understand it. They're always going to try to speak against. They're always going to be. And God got to check them. But it's not my job to convince people of anything. And it's not my job to try to keep living in a standard that I made for myself because it looks good. I don't do these things because that's not right, and and trying to do everything so right that I'm being so wrong for who I am. Oh yeah, because you can do things so right and it not be right for who you are, because you're so trying to do something so right. You're trying to be the good daughter, and you're trying to be the good son, and trying to be the good cousin, and trying to do all these things so right. But I got to do that because I said I was going to do it. Stop saying you're going to do stuff. And sometimes we say we're going to do something. We got to go and say, you know what? I can't. I used to be that. So let me tell you, it's possible to reverse and flip all that around, because it will drive you absolutely nuts. And all your gifts are being pimped out for other people's mediocre lifestyles versus being used for God. You know, and everybody pimp out who you are and your gifts for their mediocre lifestyle, or live vicariously through you with their short-sightedness for your gift. And you're not owning the gravity of what you have. You're not owning what you have. You're not owning who you are fully. Because I don't really do, I just stand in the back of the choir and sing. And you're supposed to be writing music for people. But you want to stay in that little church that doesn't add to who you are because no one asks anything of you. It don't matter what they ask. God has already spoken. He has asked something of you. And you cannot fool him, even if you try to fool yourself. Because it's going to come a time where all you have to do is look at what you didn't do when you were supposed to do it. And there ain't going to be nothing that you can say that's going to change that reality. It's not going to change it. And I feel sad for those people who have tried to tell us that it ended up in sick because they ran from what they were supposed to do. So they did everything else. So they were in spaces and places they should have never been in. And now they sick. And they know what led to their sick. They know that they because of what they put their bodies through and their mind through, and because they never lived in liberty. Do you know that negative thoughts are also can add to you developing cancer and immunity diseases? And if you're not happy, do you think you're having positive thoughts? Just because you push them in the back. And unresolved issues, stress is one of the things that can cause immunity diseases. Do you know those things are, you can look at those things, dead thoughts, negative thoughts, under microscopes, guys. God was telling us about these things before a microscope can even prove it to be real. But God has said this. So a man thinketh, so is he. And if all you do is withhold and hold everything in, you think that's going to add to who you are? We have proof after proof of people saying, I wish I would have did something different. It's not that God can't heal and restore, but you have a time in this world. And there's certain opportunities that come that never come again. Yes, God can still use you. Yes, God can still do this over there. But you're going to be doing it in the shadow of who you could have been. There's so many people who are sick and saying, I know that this all started when I didn't do this. And it just led to this. It became this because of my decisions. It doesn't matter who said what, how they made you feel. Your decisions are your own. You can't put that on nobody else. God is not going to say, oh, so they hurt your feelings, so that's why you went ahead and just ignored me anyway, even though you heard me talking to you. You will be held accountable for how you decide not to show up, just as much as how you decide to show up in this world. There is no, you can't act like you don't know. You can try, but you can't run from that truth. Something will sit you down enough to where you like, yeah, that's why. We've had so many people tell us this. And thinking that you're the exception is silly. Jesus wasn't even the exception to the purpose. Why would anybody else be? He held himself accountable for what he had to do in this world. Even though it wasn't his accountability in the first place, it was our mistake. It was human error that put us in that position. And it was only God that can relieve us of that. If human error can put you in a position to where it can separate you from God like that, and it takes God himself to fix it, what do you think you're doing? You could put yourself in a position that only God can get you out of. And then when he does, what time will you have left? Like, don't be the example on what not to do when it comes to God. We have enough of that. Be the example that you can still do great things as you live. Be the example that you may have messed up, but you're walking with God now. Be the example on God loves you and you can be redeemed. Be the example on that. Be a real living example on that. When you see the face of somebody familiar showing up behind the chaos of the crowd, and it pulls on you in a certain way. When you see the familiar face of the master, you see the familiar face of God in your life, even though it doesn't seem like it's making sense, but it's pulling on a space in you that you haven't paid attention to in a while. That's your opportunity to get out. That's your opportunity to be free. That's your opportunity to find out who you really are. That's your opportunity. Don't miss your opportunity. Don't miss your opportunity to really know yourself, to really touch the star, to really reach for the sky. Because the star that you've been reaching for, the star that you used to look for, was you the whole time. You thought it was a dream. You thought it was your imagination. You thought it was some silly idea. But God said, no, the thing that you were looking at, that you were reaching for, was the real you. It was your real identity. It was your real purpose. That's what your hope was all for. And when you stop reaching, you stop looking for yourself. You stop trying to be who you were. And it's sad that so many of us know this. But when God brings it to your attention, that's your opportunity to be free. He's not holding you to the things you were unaware of in the time. But when he makes you aware, that's when you're held to it. This is your turn now. This is your opportunity. It's right now. And you can do it. You can. You can have everything. and more that you ask God for. But it's not going to come in the way that you thought it should, that you identified with. It's going to come outside the box. Because even if you got all the money in the world this way, you wouldn't be wealthy. You'd just be rich. And that is a little more empty. And you may be rich with a bad mentality or understanding. And it's bad if it doesn't serve who you really are. I don't care how good it seems. It's okay. I'm going to say this and I'm going to go because I've been talking for a while. Before my family and I moved into our house a few years ago, actually more than a few years ago, we came from the hood. We got into a nice apartment. Finally, we went through all these ups and downs. We had lost our place to stay. We had all this stuff, and then we moved into an apartment. It was in the hood, but we had an apartment, and it was grateful. But there was a lot of things going on over there that I was like, God, I know we don't need to be here. And there was a lot of spiritual things and natural things that was just happening. And God found a way for us a year later to be able to move. And usually when you move you gonna be there for a while. Like it's hard to get out when you in. It's a thing. It just is. Okay. So God made a way for us to get out of that situation, and we moved to a wonderful apartment, and it was so lovely, and it was like the kids had the space. We all had the spaces that we needed, and I was like, God, thank you. And I had so many wonderful conversations with that place. Sometimes I still miss that balcony because of how me and God would just have so many wonderful conversations, so many dreams. I still had some spiritual battles and things like that I had to overcome in that space. But a lot of the things got left behind when we got into that apartment because we were in a different geographical location. Pay attention to that. Sometimes that matters. Sometimes we almost close to committing suicide because of our geographical location, when really it's the area we're in and not us. Yeah. So reconsider that thought if you're having it. So we're there, and then something happens where we can't stay. And we were there for like 2 years or something. And I love that apartment, and we couldn't stay. And I was so crushed because we couldn't even take everything with us. And I was like, God, I don't understand. And as I sat there, Carlos put his hand on my shoulder and he said, I'm sorry we have to leave so many things behind. But I swore it sounded like God's voice. And I said, what did you say? He said, I'm sorry we have to leave so many things behind. And I said, God, what are you saying? He said, this was okay. And this is what you could do. You did it with me. But you were so happy and content here. This was okay. But now see what I can do, because I can do better than okay. So we went through some other financial stuff and all these things and everything. And then we came to get this house. And what's crazy is we weren't even looking for a house. And, we had, a family member, one of my aunts that did realtor, and she was like, why don't y'all just see and look up, da, da, da. And she convinced us, and we end up getting, and I don't know, I'm telling this story on this podcast, that I don't really share stuff like this, but I feel like I need to share this. Maybe it's for somebody. And within a couple of months, we were in a house that we weren't even looking for. And what's funny about this house, there's little things in this house that look like that apartment. There's stuff about the kitchen, even the fireplace looks similar to it. And I'm like, God, it's the high ceiling. Like, there's things that are little things from that time in this house right now. And sometimes things are just so okay. Sometimes it's so okay. And because you came from a bad place, that seems so good to you. You're so happy now and you're grateful. And God's taking it away and you don't understand why, because God, but you gave me this. You showed me how to get here. But that was based out of what I could receive in the moment because of where I was. Not saying I didn't want a house then, but it's what I could take care of. It's what I could be faithful with. And I feel so blessed. I mean, ain't never been a place like that balcony. Okay? Never been a place like that balcony. But they say each time you fall in love differently. Every place God takes me is different with us, with me and the Lord. But I say all that to say is that was okay. I was really happy with it, but it wasn't what God was really wanting us to have. I probably would have stayed there way longer than I should have. If he didn't shake things up, I would have stayed way longer in that place. Just because it was better than where I was, and it was nice. But in God's eyes, it was just okay. He brought us here, and I see with little inklings of what he had for us, even in that apartment now. Even in the apartment in the hood, there was stuff there that reflected the things that I have in his house still. And the house is not raggedy or nothing, you know what I'm saying? But I wouldn't have, and that's what I mean by there's been little things, little spaces, little moments in life that reflect where you're really going, even in the hard times. Little parts of your gift that showed up that you would never consider would be in there. It's just, oh, well, I needed it now. Oh, I did a little something with it. I did do music at one time, and it was nice, and God's calling you back to, and you're like, or I did do, home health care, and now I'm getting called back to that. But that was good then, but it wasn't really the full purpose. It was an exposure to the gift, really. It was exposure to what it'll look like. So you'll recognize it when you get there. And now what you're doing is getting the land, you're getting the house, you're getting the territory. And when you show up in that place, there's going to be things that you're like, yeah, I did operate in this at one point. I did do that. But if we didn't take a step outside of God, outside of what we thought, because we weren't looking, we just got called and asked, did we want to try something new? And we did. And we're here. And as much as I dreamed about having a home, I had stopped. I had stopped. I just did. It wasn't that it wasn't possible, but I was like, look at my life. This is going left. That's happening. Just let it go. I'm able to do this podcast now because I'm here. There was no room for this where I was. There was no room in that apartment that I love so much. There was no room for that. And although I had to go through a few more transitions before we got to this house, I'm so grateful that I didn't stay at okay. And I say that to say that when God is taking you through a few more transitions after your okay moment, after it's okay, I'm happy. But God, just because you're happy with it doesn't mean that's what God is happy with you staying at and you living with, because you are his creation and he wants to show you off. Just like a kid trying to show you a picture when they painted it, he's happy and excited about you. And okay is just not good enough for his child. Okay, sometimes it's just a means to an end. Okay is temporary, but greatness isn't. Not when it comes to God and how he sees you and views you and loves you. When you came into this world, you were already great to him. So okay will never be good enough. And if you're sitting here settling at okay because I have everything I need, what else do I need? I'm grateful. That's cool. But he has more for you than just okay. And yes, if it feels sometimes you feel like you get demoted before you get promoted, but there's more than just okay. And when you get to better and then greater, it makes even more sense why you were even in those places of okay, because those places still reveal to you parts of where you're going, even though it didn't make sense. Those little dreams, little day visions, whatever that you've had that never made sense because you were in the hood or you're just okay. You thought that where you landed at okay was the place that God was taking you, but it still wasn't enough for some reason. But you were content, or were you really complacent? God doesn't want us to be satisfied with okay when he has greater for us. He'll take you to better and still be like, no, I have even more for you because I'm trying to take you to greater. So now that we are in a better, way better space than we were, I see where he was in the okay and in the mediocre this whole time. But if I didn't follow that strange call, if I didn't give it a chance, if I didn't take that opportunity, I would have been in okay at a really bad time in American history during the pandemic. See, we literally got into this house before the pandemic hit, just a couple of months before. And a lot of the ways people were getting in houses then didn't exist when the pandemic hit. Loans and ways to get in the way people got in the house didn't exist. And the way we got in here, it didn't exist. Soon that pandemic hit, all those things disappeared. There were so many people moving into homes that could not sign leases, sign for their lease or anything like that because those loans and homeowner loans and stuff did not exist when the pandemic hit. We came just in time before it got bad. So we were doing great in a bad time because we refused to stay at okay. Because we decided to take a chance when things didn't make sense, but it felt like it was something we were supposed to do. There was no proof, at least that was what we thought, until we start looking back in hindsight to see that there was more to those spaces. And the reason why we were in those spaces because those are the spaces that revealed little pictures of where he was taking us. But there is nothing that I can say can compare to the experience of being there. Experiencing better, you appreciate that okay, but you'll be glad that you didn't stay at okay. Well, that's all I want to say, okay? um I hope that you give God the chance, or you take the opportunity just to follow that strange, new, but yet familiar face, to just leave some things behind and trust him. It's not going to be easy when you step out of okay because you're being challenged for the next level, but it's going to be worth it. And you deserve, God feels like you do anyway, to really know the truth about who you are, what he has for you, and that you're worthy of greater and not just okay. You are worthy. All right. much love, much gratitude. This was, I think, a little bit longer than I usually go, and it started a little bit later. So I appreciate anybody that has stuck with me throughout this. But God, I just pray, Lord, that anybody that is in need of you right now, understanding or clarity or dealing with any kind of confusion about anything, God, that you show them what to seek you for, pray for, ask for, and give every one of us a new praise, a new thank you, a new gratitude. Give us clarity about the things that you're saying and help us to move on that. Help us not to be hard on ourselves and things that are not what you're giving us to be hard on ourselves. Helping us to condemn ourselves in places you're not even convicting us. But even if you're convicting us to correct us, to give us a new perspective, help us to see what you are saying and not allow our emotions or the lies or brokenness to have us respond in the way that we shouldn't. Help us to respond according to who you are and not what we feel, in the name of Jesus, and who you called us to be, in the name of Jesus. Anybody that does not know you but is hearing this and hearing the sound of my voice, I pray, if you want to know him and you want him to live in your heart, you are worthy, because he has called us all, that no one is greater than anyone. He is greater than all of us. And so he wants you. And if you want him, just say, Lord God, I just ask you for forgiveness for all of my mistakes or sins or anything I've ever done done good. And Lord, I pray that I confess that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. He is the Son of God. And I ask him to come live in my heart and in my life, in Jesus' name. And that I believe that he died on the cross for my sins. I believe that he covered me. In Jesus' name, amen. If you say that prayer, you believe that, you're saved. You're saved by faith, okay? No one can take that from you. You say you believe in him, you confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord. No one can take that from you. Don't think that they can. Don't let nobody tell you that you're not a real believer or anything like that. Let God show you where you need to be. Get in your Bible. If you don't have a Bible, you can always Google, scriptures in the Bible. Google John 3:16. You can start there. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whomsoever believeth in him will not perish but have everlasting life. So when people are trying to say, oh, you're not doing this perfect, you're going to go to hell, all that kind of stuff, anything like that, don't, some people try to correct, they don't know how to do it right because they're still human. Believe it or not, like Christian people are humans first. Like they may think that they got it together. They're not all perfect. But you remember that as you go forth, that they're human, even if some of them don't want to act like they are. They get a little religious. Just give them to God and know that you're saved. And keep seeking God for yourself. Have a relationship with him. This is not about rules and regulations as much as it is about relationship. I have to say that God has a will for us. He has a desire for all of us to conduct ourselves in the 10 Commandments, all those things. Those are wonderful. And you do need those things to help outline and give you some type of structure. But at the end of the day, God also has a will for your unique life. And only God can really show you what that looks like. And he will not contradict himself when it comes to those 10 commandments. His will for your life is not going to contradict the things that he gives us to do, because those commandments are just to help us to stay away from operating in sin or being led away from him, because sin is the thing that is the reason why we got stolen from him in the first place. It is the wedge that put us between put between God and us. And so those things are to help us to remember how to conduct ourselves so that we don't allow sin to take over, and we end up believing that we're following the law of God or following what God wants, or the will of God for our lives anyway, and we're not really, because we have to believe something that's not really true. But that's what those things are for. So you read the Bible, there's examples on how to go after God, how to trust God. But God in your life today will show up. God is not an old thing. He's not just for old people or he's for all ages. Anybody that believe in him. He says, let the little children come unto me. And he calls us his children. So that means that in his eyes, we are always the little children. We always going to need him. And he loves us as such. We are his beloved. He calls us beloved. You matter as you are right now, and he loves you too much to leave you where you are as you are right now. Trust him. He got you. You believe, you are saved, then you are saved. You confess it with your mouth, you confess it. No one can take that away from you. Stand on that. It's not an excuse to just be like, oh, only God can judge me. Yeah, no. But that's exactly what he'll do. Okay? Okay? But it is a reason to make sure you stand on it. Not let anybody tell you that you can't be great or anything like that, because he's with you. And he's been with you even before you were with him. That's just why you finally came to this space and this decision in your life to follow him for yourself, because it's been him the whole time. As you grow in y'all's relationship and talking, having time with him, because that's what matters. Everybody that wants a good relationship with somebody that they love. That's the same with God. The whole reason why relationships exist is to help us understand that he wants relationship. The more you have you spend time with God and your relationship grow, the more you're going to see where he was this whole time. The whole time. And it's cool. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And yes, you have something to offer. You have something that anybody can learn from you, because you matter. Your story matters. And thank you for coming. Thank you for joining. Thank you for whoever you share this with. Bless you. Godspeed. And remember, no matter if your crown breaks, if it falls, pick it up, because even a cracked crown still shines. And over here, we're not trying to be perfect. We're just trying to help each other see something from a different point of view, right? So until next time, be careful, be safe, and I'll see you next time at the throne. Bye.